Hello, welcome to Alive in Lockdown. I'm Caroline Wiseman and I am talking today to Caroline Wright. It's exactly a year after Alive in the Universe, 22nd of May 2019, when we were in Venice, and Caroline put on an extraordinary project called Breathe. Now, we got to know Caroline a few years ago, Caroline. So when you came here to Aldeburgh to put on a wonderful project, tell us about what you did here for us a few years ago.
Yes, that's right. It is. I hasten to add, I can't work out how many years ago, but it was a few years ago now that we first met. And I remember being so struck by that building, the Lookout, that sits on the beach in Aldeburgh, in this sort of glorious isolation, and yet it's connected with the community. And at the time I was wanting to create a film piece that looked at outposts in Suffolk, and outposts that were that had a use that perhaps had changed. And I'd got a couple of locations in mind, and then came across the Lookout and realised that it was an art space and being used for creative purposes. And that's when we first got to meet Caroline, because I asked if I could use it, and you very kindly said, please do.
It was an extraordinarily beautiful film. And then this time last year, well, obviously a bit more than this time last year, we were thinking about who might come up with really extraordinary ideas to take to Venice. And we thought about you, Caroline, and you proposed a project to us. Tell us about the project that you proposed for Alive in the Universe.
Yes, that's right. We had a couple of conversations, didn't we? I remember. And at the time, and then and now, and I continue, I've been very interested and concerned in my work with themes around loss, but particularly realised through thinking about how we breathe and through the rhythms that accompany us through life. So whether that's our heartbeat, our breathing rhythm, the life, birth, death cycle. And so you were planning your project, and you had a particular day that was associated with breathing, and so I wanted to bring the ideas that I'd been working on, which had been realised in theatres as performances and as an interactive piece, but to create a new piece within that umbrella project, the Breath Control Project, particularly for Venice and for your project. And I guess that one of the main things that I felt really strongly about in terms of designing and planning that piece were ideas around how we exist in the world, how we exist in the world in a way that we don't necessarily know or are conscious of things that are happening. So the fact that we only really think about our breathing when it goes wrong, if we become ill, if we have a congested nose and a cold, but it's something we all do. It's universal, it's common to everybody. But it's when there's a problem with it that it becomes both poignant.
And you put on for us the most amazing artistic piece there. It was a performance piece. It was projection onto two screens. You did a whole performance onto the canal. It was extraordinary, and also it was very the sound you had of the punctuating going through. It was dramatic. It was amazing. But then, so now it's taken on a new. To tell us about the situation now, Caroline.
Yeah, absolutely. The piece had a subtitle, At the Point of Perforation, the piece that was shown in Venice. And the soundtrack, which you mentioned, was this sound of a needle going in and out of waxed paper, which created, it was like a drum surface that was being pierced, but in a very much a rhythmic pattern, as a heartbeat or as an in-out breathing sort of pattern would be. And of course now with the COVID-19 virus, with breathing, dry cough and issues with breathing, people being on ventilators, all of that seems to have taken on such a poignancy. It almost feels impossible and difficult to talk about the project because of the loss that so many people have had of loved ones and members of their families and friends. But I think that one of the whole premises for the breath control project and the piece in Venice was to raise awareness of our breathing, to try to encourage people to think about what happens when you breathe, and how the air that we breathe, the levels of pollution, the environment that we're in, how important it is that we are aware and we're conscious of that and we respect it. And here we are, you know, in the middle of a pandemic, and we're locked down, and the slightest moment of cough or irregular breathing pattern, and we're all hyper alert and anxious to that.
So what work are you doing now, Caroline, and where do you think it might go?
It's a really interesting question, because I think that it has a lot more to say, the piece. And I feel that at the moment it sort of needs to go back out into the public. Of course, we're not able to do that at the moment. I've had a lot of things cancelled, as I'm sure many artists have. But because it does exist as a film, I do feel that potentially there are places that the work could go again. But I think that there's also new work that needs to come out of it, that looks at the relationship between breathing and what we see and how we feel, some sort of community engagement aspect to it that I think in the future.
So you're working out ideas and plans.
Yeah.
So something lovely. Great.
Yeah.
Well, Caroline, thank you so much for talking to me today. And thank you so much for being part of Alive in the Universe and also Alive in Lockdown. So goodbye now, and bye everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, bye Caroline. Bye-bye.